All right. Sunday, July 21st, update. So, the process of making records and specifically making a trilogy of records, or projects at least, which is what I'm currently doing, uh, involves numerous hurdles. And I guess the whole idea of the updates here is to sort of give an overview in a real time sense as to how these hurdles are handled. And the next one in line is the fallout after you make a record. So Power Nerd was finished a few weeks back, and it turned out well. It was meant to be a beginning of this trilogy. It ended up being a very difficult project for a number of personal reasons and peripheral external reasons, but we got it done. And then after a record ends, as I think I discussed the last time, there's this sense of um, there's a void. It's you've been rolling in the red for so long that in absence of that omnipresent workload, one would think that you would immediately start to relax. But I guess your adrenal system is so charged that upon finishing, you crash. And what tends to happen for me is like what happened last week. I'm like, everybody stay away. I need time. What is surprising about the trilogy now moving into the Moth, which I started this week, is that for me, artistically, what it takes to become re energized is time so that I can work on something. And then when I don't feel like working on it anymore, I can just leave it. But also variation. So the fact that the Moth has been in the process of being written for many years now, I've got essentially about 3 hours worth of material, and we only need 70 minutes. So the process has now, uh, I'm aware of the fact that probably much like childbirth as a mother, when you finish one project, there's this sense of, oh, I'm never doing that again. It was too much. It was too painful or whatever. And then a couple of weeks later, you're like, oh, where were we? And here we are doing the next one. So that aside, because that, we can discuss what the psychological implications of that or lack thereof are and have been, but it is what it is. And I'm psyched on the Moth. So this is something I've been working on for years. So because I've got so much material, we have also been assembling a team. So we have orchestrator, choral director, choirs, orchestras, players, animators, playwrights, people doing a storyboard, people doing various iterations of the story itself, which I've been writing. It's the idea is something I've had for many years, and then I've just been including people, musicians, and people in my life to start to refine that into something that's more accessible. Not accessible in terms of a commercial sense, but accessible in terms of it's a fine line between it being artistically interesting to me, but also being so obtuse that people it falls on deaf ears, right? So refining that has been something that has been going on, and because now I'm left with 3 hours of material with a 70-minute cap, essentially 72-minute cap. Um, it's about putting it into a DAW like Pro Tools, listening through, and then with the conceptual art saying, okay, well, this section and this part of the narrative, there's an image that goes along with it that I can put on the screen. And so while I'm listening, I get a sense of, okay, in this section, this is happening. And therefore, the music needs to be up tempo or heroic or dark or transcendent or whatever. And then you start to cut the fat. And by doing that, I just basically take stereo stems of the demos and I just cut sections out and do really rough Frankenstein type edits to it. That my hope is that within a month, I would say maximum, I'll have the entirety of the music in a format that I can then send to the 20 or so people that are working on this with me. And we can get on the same page as to what the Moth sounds like on a real broad level. Within that, we can then start to refine it and say, okay, this section needs work. This section, we know that it is indicative of this particular scene. Is it doing that effectively enough, or do we need to rethink this? And so I've got about a month of that. And within the next month, there's going to be some announcements as well that I think will, at least for me, be very exciting um, in regards to the Moth. And I have my eyes on the future for a life change, but not yet. So that's this week's update, and I have been taking care of myself and regaining the balance that was lost at the end of that Power Nerd experience, and I'm very grateful for it. And now that I'm starting with the Moth, and I'm able to start to see how the functionality of these um, scenarios that we've created for ourselves, be it the studio or the Atmos or what have you, really works. And as the last thing, I guess the thing that was really great about Power Nerd for me is I got to put everything into practice. Like, I got to try it. I got to try the new speakers. I got to try the Atmos. I got to try these things. And I think, again, Power Nerd turned out great. But I also realized, even a month away from it, like, oh, now I know this. I would have loved to have done that to the snare. Or, Atmos, upscaling your stereo mix to Atmos at the end with the amount of time that we had to do the Atmos um, wasn't an ideal way to do it. It was a great learning experience, though. So now the Moth, I'm starting in Atmos, like the entirety of it. We're going to have the session set up for 714, yet I'm going to do the compositional aspects just in stereo. Keep it in stereo. So the panning for all these 714 tracks are all panned left, right. The benefit of that is the I/O in Pro Tools and everything that goes into Atmos. When the compositional aspects are sorted out and it's all tightened up, and we've got a real good working process with the material itself, at that point, it's as simple as just opening up the panning and being able to sort of interpret those songs from the ground up. Uh, yeah, the Moth is very much sort of like a life's work kind of thing. And this particular point of the process, although I've been working on it for so long, it's now a lot easier for me to refine the intent, the story, the narrative in a way that gives it a lot more clarity for the team, right? One of the things that I keep thinking is maybe it would be cool to have the entire thing like a vocal performance. With Death of Music and everything, it was very much focused on the voice. But I've not done that since then. So there's a part of me that wonders if experimenting with the Moth in its entirety as a single vocal performance. Of course, there's other singers and choral aspects and bands and orchestra and all this, but maybe focusing it on a single performer. The first one being me, but then down the line, if other people enjoy it, then perhaps it can be something that could be presented as like, okay, this is for a single voice. It's for a single performer, and the story and everything about the Moth, about I guess the transcendent nature of an individual, any individual, and how uh, almost most pointedly in the story, the protagonist isn't special. Like, that's a big part of the Moth and the story. There's been people on the team that not take issue with that, but have a difference of opinion with that, where they think, oh no, well, clearly the character needs to be special. But for me, as a person who's getting into writing a story and orchestrating all these narratives with music, I'm really sick of that whole the one trope. you know, like the hero's journey thing, the Neo, or you know, Frodo, Luke Skywalker. I understand the I understand the appeal of it, and I understand that it works. But I think that in theory, you can tell a story about a protagonist that is meant to represent just anybody, and so long term, yeah, of course, I'll be the first one to sing it. But in the future, the idea is that other people can sing it, and it doesn't matter who it is, right? Like any gender, any voice, whatever. I'm excited about it. It's fucking rad. And I'm starting. I've almost got the things in my personal life ironed out. Well, not ironed out, but in a place that they can function autonomously and I can focus. I would say it's been probably 5 years since I've been able to focus on work, really focus on work, between pandemic and just trying to kind of build the studio, or keep the boat in the water. It's like so much of what I've been doing is just trying to figure out ways to keep everything afloat, right? Um, but I think that I'm right on the verge, like maybe a month away from, for the first time in years, being able to actually focus on music again, like really focus. Seems a little strange to say because, of course I did Power Nerd and Light Work and Puzzle and Snuggles and Dream Piece and all that. And there's aspects of all of those that were based in a true artistic experience. I mean, they all were, but not in the same way as I have been able to focus in the past. So another month, and I should have been able to find solutions for a lot of extenuating circumstances in my life that required solutions so that I could just focus. It's been years since I've been able to focus, and my hope is that the Moth now is my ability to do so. I'll see you next week. Thank you for the support as always. I'll keep giving updates. Any questions? Not that there are any, but if there were any, um, let me know in the comments, and I'll see if I can muster the emotional fortitude to to read them. I probably won't, but feel free to ask. All right, thanks again, and I'm excited, and I'm starting to get my rest back. About 10 minutes ago, I said the last thing, and here we are, continuing to go.